Okay, welcome to the bunker. My name is Will Richardson, and we're talking tonight to Mr. Matthew Tyrmand, man about town in Warsaw and other parts. New Yorker, a Chicagoan. So you're familiar with both the Windy City and the Big Apple.
That I am. Yes, I'm from a lot of places these days, including Poland. I'm proud to say, as a citizen and someone deeply engaged.
Deeply engaged, yeah. You write all the time, and it, very fascinating. We could call you. I mean, I think of you as a young contemporary Thomas Paine. You're shouting. I mean, in the contemporary sense.
Yeah,
you know.
Well, I like the analogy.
You like the analogy.
Throw in a little
I thought
Tom Wolfe as well. You know,
yeah.
modulating the political vitriol.
Yeah.
With hopefully some poignant and humorous insights. I think that I have an interesting perspective coming from American politics, and all the engagement I have in that arena.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk before we get into that and the political stuff.
You want to talk politics, Will?
Yeah. Well, I think we're gonna talk about politics. There's all kinds.
With that.
There's all kinds of elections. Poland's having an election, and since we're sitting in Warsaw, we should talk about that. It's coming up on Sunday.
Kocham Warszawa.
Yeah, we love Warszawski gin, and also, of course, the huge erection that's happening in the United States, the Trumpster, Mr. Sanders, and the whole cast of characters, from Bible thumpers and but proselytizers, business proselytizers to democratic socialists who view Denmark as the future. It's all interesting. The United States is a big.
May you be cursed with interesting times, an old Chinese proverb goes, and
that's right.
We certainly have those.
Well, at the same time, you've also got Justin Trudeau coming in.
Trudeau.
I should introduce Mike O'Donnell, always with us.
Who always likes to jump in without saying hi.
Always with us. That's Mike. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've got weird figures in England as well. Jeremy Corbyn.
Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour guy. Yeah.
You see his new appointee, communications director?
No.
Seamus Milne. This guy, you have to read about this guy. He is one step short of wearing a Che Guevara t-shirt everywhere he goes.
And what was Corbyn?
Oh, Corbyn just found his perfect communications mouthpiece to drive Labour so far left over a cliff, so far from the mainstream, so far from what people on the ground want.
I never understand this fascination with Che Guevara. I mean, he's just one of the most bloodthirsty, unwashed hypocrites I've ever read about in my life. I mean, I guess you've read a lot. I've seen every documentary, read, his writings.
A romantic figure to the left. He took control.
His writing's impenetrable. It's like reading Salman Rushdie backwards. It's impossible to understand, But anyway, I wanted to. This is about you, Matthew.
It's about all of us.
And other subjects, but
and politics.
Well, I want to. Yeah, right. And I want you to talk a little bit about yourself, because you have a very interesting background. So tell us a little bit about that.
Oh wow, it's a big question. So I grew up in New York City, the son of Leopold Tyrmand, the famous 20th century journalist, writer, and anti-communist dissident here in Warsaw.
And also later in New York.
And also later in New York, and sort of within American politics as well.
And eventually Florida, I believe. Yeah.
Well, Florida's where he had a heart attack and died in 1985. So, but we were living at the time in Rockford, Illinois, which is where I was born. Rockford is in the book that I wrote with the journalist Kamila Sivniewska. We call Rockford American Katowice, which is ironic because now I've spent a lot of time in Katowice and kind of looked at investing in some business there. But there are some similarities, at least Katowice 20 years ago and Rockford progressing more and more even today. Just an industrial town that just didn't have a lot going for it. But my father was recruited to help start a think tank and edit their writings. And so I was born in Rockford. You can't choose where you're born. And my mother was certainly not happy about having to live there for many years, including from when we were born until we were 4, my sister and I. So after he died, we moved to New York, where my mother was from, and I grew up for the rest of my childhood in Brooklyn, which was, of course, an interesting experience.
Sorry, the music. Turn that music off, Mike.
And it got real dramatic for a moment. Like,
we'll cue music at the right moment.
Yeah, we've got a crack team of.
Yeah, I've got an onion, and if you're ready to cry, I've got an onion in the other room, so it'll tear you
I
up.
just have to think about Polish politics.
That'll make you weep.
If I don't laugh, I cry, so I can kind of control it.
So what brought you? I mean, I understand you came to Poland for a particular reason, yes?
Well, I came kind of for a lot of reasons. I started coming in 2010, right 1 week before Smolensk was the first time.
Smolensk being the plane crash.
The plane crash.
With all the Polish politicians dying, including the president. Yeah.
So I came 1 week before then for the first time, and there were a lot of reasons that I finally wanted to go, and I ended up coming and visiting, and ended up being involved with a girl here, which is always a good reason to come multiple times. And I came sort of half a dozen or so times and just kind of went around the country and just kind of got to know it a little bit and didn't do anything public, just kind of feeling it out. Got citizenship, like really just, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the promise this place has, the opportunity, the culture, the people, even the history, which has certainly formed the people and the ethos here. And so I got citizenship, and then I started getting a little bit more involved in the debate. And it was good. It was a little bit by design that I really pushed to get the citizenship before I got very vocal, but I didn't expect to get as vocal as I have been. I had the opportunity to do a couple public meetings, and I thought, yeah, that'd be cool. And of course, after 2.5 years of visiting, I'd already figured out in my mind a few things about the political debate here, and was certainly had formulated some opinions. So as I am my father's son, especially when it comes to politics, I'm never shy to voice those, and if given a platform, I'm pretty convinced of my viewpoints. Sort of really, I'm built with a lot of conviction, just like he was, and I don't think it's misplaced. But I am always willing to sort of put my opinion forward, and having that opportunity in Poland, it started really accelerating very, very quickly in the last 2.5 years, pretty much coinciding with when I published this book with Kamila Sybniewska called Jestem Tyrmand, Syn Leopolda. The title was not my idea.
What does it mean?
Jestem Tyrmand, Syn Leopolda. I am Tyrmand, son of Leopold.
Yeah, okay.
Znak convinced me that sounded good. I was not, I didn't feel that it was a battle I needed to fight that hard, but I regret not fighting harder on it, because I found the title somewhat ridiculous.
At least it's, I'm Tyrmand, son of a bitch, that would be worse, wouldn't it?
In English it sounds horrible. They told me that in Polish it has kind of a good flow to it. I cannot confirm or deny that at the
well, they want to sell books, and your dad is
exactly.
Your father is a very famous man.
But I wanted to call it Dreams from My Father, which was a take of Barack Obama's first book. And I thought that would be great for sales.
I think that's very good. And then they could put a subtitle.
Yeah, you throw Tyrmand in there, subtitle.
Yeah, subtitle Leopold, son of Leopold.
Yeah. Matt, son of Leopold. Matusz.
He wrote a very famous book called Everyone Knows in Poland, and I mean, he's also very famous in the States. I know he wrote for the New Yorker.
Well, I think he's more
other
people. Here. On a per capita basis, more people.
Sure.
Here
he's a national kind of figure.
In the U.S., he's well known in circles, in intellectual circles, and media circles on the right. But a lot of what he said has become mainstream. A lot of what the Rockford Institute, the think tank that he co-founded and built, what they put forward was a really important part of the debate in the 70s and 80s. And well into the 80s, after he passed on, and had some good staying power.
What was their ethos?
The ethos was sort of classical liberal values, so what was then sort of contemporary conservatism, like Enlightenment thinkers with a focus on the Judeo-Christian spiritual center of society. So like strong right-of-center values, very value and moral-driven, and what happened was there sort of two camps really broke out of it, which was the evangelicals got more potent as sort of just the spiritual side, and then the foreign policy hawks on the other side, which were neocons. But then it was, there was Reagan had been driving this really strong societal and political buildup of conservatism. And it was a really good time for the country because it was conservatism done right. And those values still persist somewhat on the right, but there's a lot of factions on the right that have made it so that it's those sort of what I call classical Republican ideals are not the forefront of the modern Republican Party. So it's...
In what sense? Where does it deviate from the...
Well, the most basic sense for me is rule of law and cronyism.
Yes.
So
okay.
Republicanism versus Democrats in the U.S. is mob rule versus rule of law. Republicans believe in rule of law, so codify, they're constitutionalists, codified structure, and it's based in the Judeo-Christian and British common law, Judeo-Christian values and British common law. That was the success of America. And so that's why they're sort of considered conservative, is because they want to harken back to that. The Democrats believe in pure democracy, which is 51% wins. So, and that I call mob rule. So the 51% can vote themselves, a lording class power over the 49%. And that's what the left in America has been working towards since FDR, which is a collective mentality, and the collective comes before the rule of law. So that's why you have activist judges who go against the Constitution and advocate for things that strengthen government power, even things like privacy. These are certainly against even the Bill of Rights, the most primal amendments to the Constitution of privacy and search and seizure, and these things have been abrogated in America. Why?
These rights have regressed. They've
Poland
regressed.
is not the
They've
only
been,
contemporary shit show.
Yeah,
the whole world is a shit show.
Correct. And I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's not a glib. I mean, I think everyone. That's not a glib statement. We've said it glibly, but it's not. I mean, you can just run down the different things that are problems now with it. In every area, there are major problems. Rights. Rights being abrogated. So, what are the key rights that have been whittled away at?
The most...
in your opinion. Yeah.
In my opinion?
Yeah.
Certainly expression has come under assault.
Freedom of expression.
Freedom of expression. First Amendment. I mean, I do believe that...
in what ways? How has that happened?
If you look at the focus on LGBT equality in the country, it is crowded out religious freedoms. And that is, to me, an incredible abrogation. Whether I'm a libertarian, I'm all about full equality for everybody based on individual merit, not identity politics, but by default, identity politics comes from the former. But the activism in among the big government left, especially in the last 7 years under Obama, has driven things like marriage equality as an issue. It's a hate crime to have a different opinion, so to speak. The gay marriage.
Political correctness, basically.
The political correctness, but militantly enforced by the federal government.
Right.
There are the example that's made the news several times. Oregon, Indiana, are establishments that won't serve gay weddings because they believe in traditional marriage, and that's part of their religion. It certainly is part of the Judeo-Christian ethos for thousands of years. It is firmly in there. Whether you want to make statements that that they have to evolve, that is. You're denying a fundamental fact, and as a result, there's an impingement on freedom of religion when there's activists, prosecutors, and judges who will find people guilty. In as deep a market as the U.S. has, those who choose not to service somebody should have that right. That's a classical liberal or libertarian perspective. It is not discriminatory.
Give an example.
bakers baking wedding cakes, and gay couples saying, we want you to bake us a wedding cake. And for our wedding, we say, no, we don't believe in that. We're a Christian bakery. That's happened. There's a couple in Oregon that's been put out of business and fined many times over and has huge bills mounting up with penalties. And now the Oregon...
because they don't want to bake a lesbian cake?
Exactly.
But okay, so you're saying they should have the right to do that. Even if it's silly, they should have the right.
Exactly. Yeah. And the market, in a free market,
you're not saying
a market that's deep enough where there's going to be other bakers happy to have that business. You do not need to bankrupt people at the end of a gun for some level of morality that's your morality and not theirs. Whether you approve it or not, they can have their own views on things.
Well, sure. It's like you see a television program you don't like, change the fucking channel.
Exactly.
You don't have to watch it. It's not for you.
But that's not
if you don't like that song, change the station.
But that's not what the far left that has taken over.
Of course.
The EU through the European Parliament and the federal government in the United States in Washington D.C.
You're not an Alex Jones fan, are you?
No, way too far out there for me. There's a lot of
he's hilarious.
On the right that I find a little ridiculous.
He seems a very nice man, but he is crazy.
Tinfoil hat wearing, it doesn't seem practical to me.
Yeah.
Yes. Are there a lot of conspiracy out there? Fuck yeah. But it's not
But
practical.
there are some real conspiracies.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
But it's not.
But let's concentrate
you gotta
on that.
fight the battles that you can win. Then you can drive the debate and hopefully the results. And to go after the conspiracies, which are, there's an old sort of medical joke that doctors, when they consult to each other, when you hear hoofbeats, don't think zebras.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's enough horses out there that you don't need to go chasing a zebra.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what, there's too many conspiracy theories that I think
stick with the obvious. Yeah.
Stick with the fact that, there are certain brazen examples of corruption that are, anyone can see, like Hillary Clinton, that...
Define the Hillary Clinton, the latest one. Go ahead.
Well, the latest one is she set up her own email server in direct contravention of federal law with no permission except from herself to communicate for quote-unquote her convenience, she claims. So there was no oversight on any of her official emails, and then had classified documents and like the highest level of classification in the U.S. Sort of protection service. And she was just passing them around like nothing. Thousands of counts of violations of the Espionage Act, which is so the opposite of gray. It is black and white. And she will look into a camera and say she never did anything wrong over and over again. Mm-hmm. But there's a reason why this has been passed up now to the FBI, and the investigation's being run by the head of the FBI, who's a total nonpartisan and a career FBI guy.
She did not have sex with that computer.
Yeah. I mean, and her behavior is just so incredibly beyond contempt with the way she deals with everyone. In a debate, she asked, who are the enemies you're most proud of having and having beat? And she said Republicans. And, the country's 50-50 divided. You have to be a real sociopath and politically so oriented to just one way of thinking that you would say half the country, you are my enemy. Mm-hmm. And it's...
So you object to this. You want a more reasoned approach. And but do you believe in... I mean, I tend to think these arguments are very good. When you have to... you're not suggesting a consensus, that we're going to all be able to hold hands and have this consensus. There are always going to be opposite points of view, jousting.
Different values. Yeah. There has to be a give and take. And under Obama, that give and take has been on the federal level.
The limits are violence and et cetera. Yeah.
Yeah.
When people resort to violence or to corruption to achieve their aims.
Well, the problem is when the aims are so the center's got an aim in the country, and most Americans are somewhat centrist, but the polemics that have hijacked both of the dominant parties, and I guess it makes sense mathematically because those are the ones who, if they hijack, have the capacity, the energy, the full-time commitment to hijack and bring it to sort of polemical end on the left and the right. It's the career politicians and those in D.C. And the capitals who are focused, devoted their life to driving these debates. They drive them toward the polls. That's who's attracted to it. But right now, it looks like there's an attempt to try and shift that, at least on the right. of
shift what?
Shift the career politician focus of sort of polemicists who are in their own establishments. On
Who are your favorite polemicists? Or ones that you think? Then I'm not saying that you agree with them all the time. So you people that, for example, Christopher Hitchens was one I liked very much. Not always agreeing with him, but enjoyed his ability to have a civilized
Well, on the left and the right, the
debate.
Democrats and the Republicans in the U.S., I mean, the left is hijacked by the sort of social justice warriors. A lot of them are running around Brussels as well, like Elizabeth Warren and...
Yeah, is she a Native American or not? I'm confused. I rather liked her till I found out
call her
that
Dances with Lies.
Yeah, Dances with Lies. Good.
With
lies. Yeah.
Pocahontas.
Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, she's apparently the thing was that she may have got preference in academic appointments because she claimed
that she was Native
or someone
American
claimed for her.
She did.
She
claim, checked the box that she was a Native American.
And there's no proof for that.
No, and she's manufactured some like very tenuous,
It's 1/16, isn't it?
Yeah, something like this.
Yeah. If you're 1/16, for the people, if you are 1/16 of a Native American, an American Indian, then you get some kind of rights. What do you get? You get a few acres somewhere on a reservation, or
I think you get access to living on a reservation, which doesn't seem like a solid.
Doesn't seem like a career move. Yeah.
No, but I mean the left.
Well, it could be if you're a Seminole. They're doing very well.
Yeah, well, casino,
with all their gambling.
Casino, well, that's where the money is, and that's a whole other podcast on.
But I always think this is great.
The gaming sector in America.
It's a great thing. I just wanted to say that I always think that it's great that the Indians are getting their revenge, making money hand over fist. Those who do take it on, some refuse. They're making money hand over fist. It's not taxable, and they're getting their own back in some way. But what a weird way to get it back.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it is. There's a lot of government intervention in these practices, and they're very dirty.
Sure.
And all over the country.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I mean, on the right, you also have guys like the military-industrial complex guys like McCain and Graham.
I went to my psychiatrist and he told me I have a military-industrial complex.
I can see the military. I don't know if I'm sure about the industry.
No, I'm just totally obsessed with the military-industrial complex. It's like it should almost be Freudian. I think that this category of people who feel oppressed by the military-industrial build-up over the years. Even as we know, famously, it's a cliche now to say Eisenhower made a speech about it.
Oh yeah.
That was, but I wanted to. That's back when the Republicans were liberals.
Well, classical liberals.
Yes.
Classical
liberals.
They were. Which is what
Nixon
I'd like us to go back to.
He's too liberal now to be in the Republican Party. And, if Nixon were alive.
In some ways. Now Nixon. That's a very long conversation about. Nixon was motivated by
be careful what you say.
A lot of cross currents.
Because
and there was definitely some
I can channel him.
And economic illiteracy.
Yeah.
That has continued to weigh on the American economy sort of multi-generationally. What do you think about Polish politics these days?
Well, no, I mean, this is an endless conversation about
it's always endless
about American politics. But let's move on to Polish politics because the election is coming up. What I think about Polish politics is that it's so sort of what I call not banana republic but potato republic that I have a hard time taking it seriously at all for a long time since those early great figures. Of Mazowiecki and Wałęsa and these people that I just think are amazing. They were had amazing integrity.
They'd steal spines.
They'd
steal spines. They'd been through a lot.
Yes,
so
they had spines made of steel. Yes, they did. They were iron men, and I forget some of the other ones. The writer. Who died some 10 years ago, who was so famous. Bronislawski is another one. I can't remember his name. No, he's the journalist. Yeah. There was, I can't remember their names right now, forgive me, but you're right, there were this whole series of people who were amazing. And then the younger ones, rather like this I call it the ass generation of people now, because they seem to be obsessed with ass and making asses of themselves.
Well, you've had the rise of the career politician.
Yeah.
And that is a pox on any republic. And so that's what this.
I could not agree more. How do you solve that problem? Because that's a problem in Poland.
It's a term limit. It's an issue in most of the developed world. They have built over the last sort of the post-war era career politicians. America led the way. And maybe that is a pitfall of capitalism, and that's why term limits is necessary. Is that everything becomes commodified eventually, and political influence has become that in the developed world in the last 60 years, plus 70 years now since World War II, in this big economic expansion that America led the world with.
Selling shit.
Selling shit, producing shit, consuming shit, efficiently deploying resources, more efficiently than any time the world has ever seen, and on a continuing basis, and then teaching the world how to do that.
But not
enabling Japan and Germany to do that through subsidizing through military capacities expended on the American side.
So become disposable. Make everything disposable, and
Bernie Sanders says you have too many choices. So.
Too many choices.
Too many choices. He
there are
his campaign trail.
But what are the choices in America?
Well, he said his example was
paper or plastic.
Well, he said,
as George Carlin said.
He said we have all this inequality, and we don't need 23 types of deodorant.
Well, in a sense, that's true.
No, because that's competitive forces. The market has grown. That there's consumers for 23 types of deodorant. And you know what? That's 23 manufacturing lines that have full employment, that are employing people. Sure. And are building an economy. And to Bernie Sanders, he's so economically illiterate, he says, let's get rid of them by fiat and make 3, and then we'll get those resources productively deployed elsewhere to counter inequality. And that level of thinking is so unbelievably remedial. And this guy's doing great in the U.S. right now on the left.
I think he's doing great for other reasons, not particularly because of that.
No, it's inequality. It's all about inequality. He says we're going to give you so much free shit, free college education. I mean, he's driving Hillary now to make all these promises as well. And they don't care. They'll say anything. I mean, like Evan Kopach will say anything.
It's not free education. He's talking about free tuition. You still have to. It's still going to cost you $10,000 a year to keep yourself going, which you can just about do if you have a job as a student. But then you end up not having these huge debts at the end. I think that's what he's talking about. And it didn't used to be that way.
Like free tuition, fully, which is another perversion of the marketplace to counter the perversion that was made with the federal government getting involved in higher education through subsidized loans. They exploded the market and applied or removed any chance that there was going to be pricing discipline within it.
By the institutions, the educational institutions.
By Sallie Mae and the federal government getting involved in a government-sponsored enterprise called Sallie Mae, the Student Loan Mortgage Application Association or something like this, SLMA. It's like Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac did with housing, or Farmer Mac with farms. Right. The government says you have an unlimited backstop because it's a social good for us to backstop these loans. So what happens is the price of the college education has gone from, on average, $10,000 30 years ago to $60,000 at
which
higher
is absurd because there's been no increase of
no, and if anything, if you look at the higher education system, it's a joke. It's gotten more and more cartoonish.
They don't teach
basket weaving and they drink a lot.
They teach.
It's become a vacation. Yeah. I went to one of the best schools in the country, and let me tell you.
So did I, and it was difficult.
And it was difficult.
It was hard to get through.
When
I went.
Me too. But you could see that the experience that I had was so different from 30, 50, 60, 70 years before. Yeah. And so there's a direct relationship between the indiscriminate pricing moving upwards, so there's no sensitivity to these massive price increases, and then no sensitivity to the quality of education or the quality, what you were paying for.
Yeah.
And what you were paying for was more and more leftist professors who had a subsidized sort of career vacation spot where they could pontificate about bullshit. And it's really helped destroy the world, in my view, is the growth of the ivory tower that the government has subsidized through this backstop loan program.
And of course, tenured professors.
So that's part of it, yeah. So they can't get fired. There's no accountability, and that's that.
Well, it's okay if they're tenured if they're good, but if they're not good, it's no good.
Tenure is a cartelification. It is a way of inserting fiat, regulation, a
It's
law
a union.
it's a union
Yeah.
that fights for it and gets that through collective bargaining and being able to sell its influence to someone who wants it, i.e. a politician.
Okay.
So through tenure, through this union sort of driven fiat, you have now inserted an anti-competitive measure so that the best and the brightest will not succeed. Those who are most protected and have seniority are totally immune. Zero accountability. It's like France. Do you want your education system to look like French society and French government? The inability to fire anybody. It's horrible. In New York, the New York City Public School, they're famous for rubber rooms. You could beat the shit out of a student, and they can't even fire you. They send you to full pay suspension in what they call a rubber room. You report to work, normal hours, and you sit there all day and do nothing.
Of course.
And you're paying, you're getting full payment, you're building toward your seniority, and you're getting your pension.
What that means, yes, what that means actually, the rubber room, what it means for people that are listening is that...
we have listeners?
Us. I'm talking about us. I'm talking about Mike.
Yeah.
And the guys down around the pub, because we're going to replay this for them later. And they won't understand it, believe me, because they're a bunch of lunkheads. But it means that the person is not fired. They still have full benefits, full pay. They just are not allowed in the classroom.
They're suspended.
Because they've been naughty.
They've
been naughty.
Forever.
But the children don't get that. The children get suspended. They're out, man.
Oh, I think they should, have... you'd be surprised how little they're out nowadays.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the inmates are running the asylum. So everything... No, there's no blame anymore on anything.
Okay.
It's all you're
This
a
is
victim.
the United States, though. It's
You're a
not
victim.
like that here. But
I agree.
I wanted to
It's only like that here if you're a politician. Then you can do whatever you want, and there's no blame.
This is the whole problem of in this country. The whole problem is
those who should be inmates are running the asylum.
What do you call it when you have a bunch of people, not an aristocracy, but you have a bunch of people running I forget what
Plutocracy.
Yes,
it's a plutocracy and a kleptocracy. So because the
also
plutocrats have looted the country over the last 8 years.
But this is, if you compare Poland to America, this is, I mean, there are a lot of things to recommend Poland. I mean, but
most beautiful women in the world.
Beautiful women and beautiful countryside, a low cost of living relative to what you get. The weather's terrible.
Smart people.
The worst weather ever.
No traffic.
There's a thin crust of smart.
Kebab King.
And Kebab King. Kebab King is a chain of kebab stores, and they put the biggest Kebab King they put in one of my favorite restaurants I used to go to, which was a really good place to hang out.
A travesty.
Yeah, it's a travesty. They turned it into a Kebab King and been there 10 years.
Well, at 2 a.m. at some point, you'll be happy it's there.
What's that?
At 2 a.m. at some point, you'll be happy it's there.
No, I don't like
I would be.
kebabs.
I'd be
I don't
thrilled.
like kebabs. But not for me. But I don't mind a hamburger. Anyway, it's not the junk food aspect, which is fun sometimes. But coming up to the Polish elections, there is. I have been reading articles. Let's start with this, because I bet you've read them too. In fact, I read a Fox article, and I read a Washington Post article, and I wonder where they get these moronic journalists from, and the New York Times too. They all went to one. They went to the New York Times terrible.
The worst. Columbia Journalism School or Medill at Northwestern. They all went to the same place, and they all did their internships in New York and D.C. And it's just one giant
programmed
groupthink.
robots.
Groupthink.
Yeah. So they all go down to the same. What do you call it? Journalistic junket down in the south of Poland, and they turn up in this small town, which is doing pretty well, but they go to an old disused factory, of which there are plenty, because a lot of them are obsolete. You can walk around Warsaw and see plenty of obsolete factories, which could, somebody could come in if they needed land and do something else, but they're doing other things. It's cheaper to build than to replenish an old factory. So they stand in front of a factory that hasn't worked for a long time and go, this is an example of what's going wrong. In a country that has had the most successful growth rate, although medium wages are low, also standard of living is low relative to Germany.
Where did all that
and other
GDP go?
countries.
Because GDP has doubled
Where
since
does it go?
89. It's
Where
up
does it
40
go?
points since 2000. I know where it goes.
Into people's dachas?
No, I know where. Well, some dachas, but Zykes, I think, dachas. But it goes to the growth of government. It goes when in 2000 there were every posto had maybe 4, 5, 6 staffers. Now they have a dozen, or in different agencies they've built. To
Every
regulate,
what? Every what?
Government electee, so parliamentarians.
Oh, parliamentarians have bigger staffs.
So bigger staffs. There's a growth of a governing class.
They have an amazing amount of money, don't they, to go on junkets and trips?
Oh, yeah, it's a joke. And who pays for it? The hapless taxpayer. So in the U.S., I co-run a nonprofit called Open the Books, where we put all government spending online. And this is an initiative that I think it'd be great for Poland, but good luck getting the government class, the plutocracy, to open up the public sector checkbook, because we know it's a hotbed of cronyism. They know it's a hotbed of cronyism. We know that it's a hotbed of cronyism.
But that's Poland. It's a stratified society. It's a very class-conscious, hierarchical. It's hierarchical.
Well, but there's really two hierarchies. There's the 90% and there's the 10%.
Right.
And the 10% have been looting the country. I mean, and that's what happens in these post-Soviets. It's happened in all the post-Soviet Soviet countries, but Poland had a much stronger growth rate for, I think, a couple of reasons. One was culturally, for so many different epochs, so many different periods in Poland's history over the hundreds of years, it was being part of an imperial empire, the Prussians and the Russians and the Germans and the Soviets, the Austro-Hungarians. So there was always sort of a black
But Poland
market.
before that also had its own empire, which people forget. When people start crying into their beer, I go, hey, look, you're an ex-imperial power yourselves. What happened? Blame yourself.
Well,
blame yourself.
There's always a confluence of events and
well, there is. It's not that simple.
The reason
don't say
why,
it's poor Poland. There was. No. You have a proud imperial history. Saved Europe several times.
Sure, I agree. We're getting to that stage again, I think.
We can name them on our hand, right? You know, right now we can do it if we wanted to, but people can look it up. People are invoking Sobieski again now. Because of the immigrant thing.
History repeats in funny ways. It rhymes.
This time the invasion is even more people without guns, but more people invite, and they just come on down. It's like they're not even meeting him on the hills of Vienna. They're just letting them in.
Well, I think Poland was very well set up to outperform all of the. It was a bigger economy with a stronger, independently minded and entrepreneurial culture for these last 500 years under different imperial rules, always having a functioning and thriving black market. There was always a sort of level of entrepreneurialism that's culturally embedded. You even see it in the nuance in the language.
I couldn't agree more.
And as a result, it came out of 89, even in 88 with Wilczek's law. You saw that there were what we call animal spirits just waiting to get out and compete. And then the liberalization, the quick liberalization of the economy, the taking your lumps, nasty that it was, what Bolshevik did.
You're talking about the famous shock therapy.
And just a rapid liberalization, right off bad assets, businesses and state-sponsored, state-owned businesses go under as the market reorganizes. It's difficult and certainly tough, to build a currency that could have long-term stability because you really depreciate people's assets rapidly. But this allowed Poland to grow and prosper for the ensuing 25 years. There hasn't been a contraction yet in GDP, and I actually think that it's getting closer. We're in a cycle where it's going to be the first time, and I do think Poland's going to go into a real recession and will not be immune this time.
Isn't the world going to? Then?
It is, but Poland has been immune from previous ones for the reason that its animal spirits and its culture of entrepreneurialism and how much capacity that, because the scale of the economy of 40 million people was being brought online into the global marketplace, plus that catch-up in labor costs, allowed Poland to be immune from other recessions. I think it could have continued to be, but because of the political corruption over the last 8 years, foreign direct investment has just left this country. I've seen it and I've experienced it, and it's with good
when you say political corruption, let's define our terms.
First, Shiku.
Take a break.
Yeah.
Take a break. Off you go. We're very informal here. You're allowed to go and wander around. Yeah. Make yourself some fried eggs in the kitchen.
I could go for some fried eggs.
Yeah. Are you hungry?
No.
The cook is off. Okay. So, after that brief interlude, let's go back and look at what's happening. You are very focused on, you're a Polish citizen, and you became a Polish citizen, I assume to have more, feel that you had more right to comment on the situation, become involved, right?
I just got it because I realized I was eligible, given my father's history, and I fell in love with the place, the country, the people, and I love coming here, so I thought it would be something that I wanted to have.
Okay, what do you like about Poland, despite all the problems? And then we'll talk a little bit about the election.
It's just, honestly, when I started coming here, something I noticed really, really quickly was that all the young people were hungry for a better Poland, were kind of knew what was going on, were a little bit more politically engaged, and that has changed in the last 6 years, unfortunately. But were really hungry for a better Poland and hungry to be involved in it. And so many people, so many young people, 18 to say 30, I met. It was like, when I asked them what they wanted to do, they'd say, I want to own a store, I want to build a business, I want to be involved in a software company, do something sort of in the private sector, building things and making money. And if you talk to, a French 18 to 30-year-old, you get, I want to work for the government, I want 5 weeks of vacation a year, I want to retire at 45, full pension, and I want to, work from like 10 to 3.
Total hedonism, basically.
Yeah, well, it's what humans are driven by incentives. So you create incentive structures like you do under socialism, where everyone's going to be equal, no one's going to outperform, and as a result, everyone's just going to get the same. There's no capacity to want to compete. There's no capacity to want to build.
What's your incentive? You made some money. You're an investor as well. As a polemicist, I'm going to call you a polemicist. I think you are.
Social critic.
Yeah.
Centrist social critic.
Yeah, I think so. And
we're fair and balanced.
Yeah.
Empirical.
Fair and balanced, right?
Fair and balanced.
Yeah. Do you speak Polish?
Nie mówię po polsku.
You don't speak Polish very well.
I can say some of the important words.
Yeah. Do you go on TV ever or anything?
I do.
Like that? But they translate you.
Yeah, sometimes they leave it, sometimes they translate. I've had a few interpreters give up kind of like in mid-job, just so you can hear them sigh and just go, ah.
Well, you
I talk fast, I use big words.
You do talk fast, and you're... it takes. I'm sitting here concentrating to follow you.
It's a lot of.
You're really. I'm tired. I'm getting the full brunt of your tour de force.
No, I'm trying to keep an even pace. I can definitely tone it up a notch if you.
I know you can. I've heard you do it before.
I'm really consciously trying, especially when I do public speaking or TV, radio, to slow down so people can understand. That's in the U.S. too. When I speak publicly, like I.
Why do you think they're inviting you on? Because you're controversial?
I say a lot of things I think a lot of people agree with, but they choose not to because saying these things might cause problems for them. So the problem here in this country, the biggest problem, and I just wrote a piece about this for Vopros that just got posted on their sort of opinion editorial.
Is that online?
Section. It's online right now, yeah. And it'll be online, it'll be archived forever. Unless the government puts in an
pulls the plug.
Yeah. I don't think they can get injunctive relief on this one.
Don't talk about the Pope. Stay away from that.
Yeah, no hate speech.
That gets you into trouble.
Careful on the hate speech.
I find that really anachronistic. I find it amazing that at this point, 21st century, you cannot criticize the Catholic Church.
Yeah, I think that
you can get in trouble for it.
Yeah, you can criticize the Catholic Church. What you can't criticize is Sikorsky, Applebaum, Michnik, the sacred cows who have the judiciary and can drive civil suit decisions against their enemies because this judiciary is so fucked. It's so many legacy players who never learned how to engage power or law except under commies. And so that residual sort of defect from communism persists here, but it will grow out if people fight for the right governance structures. The problem is that this election, certainly a referendum on this, do you want the institutionalized looting that comes from non-term limited big government leftists, or do you want unfortunately the choice is stark and not perfect, do you want the right-of-centered, church-centered, moralistic socialists? And personally, I choose the moralistic socialists for the reason that they are a little less prone to loot the country as brazenly because they believe in a higher power as opposed to the leftists who believe in the power of state of which they are the state. So it exempts themselves from all rules, and that's what they've done over the last.
So the right wing, the Peace
years.
Party, believes that there could be some comeuppance in the hereafter. You think?
Yeah, I do.
But they had a lot of corruption too.
They did, but I think on a per capita basis, and especially being out of power for so long, you should in a democracy have a pendulum swinging back and forth between the factions, keeping each other competitive.
This
and
is a
on their
republic,
game. This
by
is
the
a
way.
republic.
It's not a democracy. It's a republic.
This is a republic.
There is a difference, and people
yes,
forget
and
that.
that's what we talked about
The
earlier.
United States is a republic, so
Absolutely.
this
But democracy, the
Democracy
voting
is,
mechanisms that exist now
yeah,
are of a
different.
democracy structure, not what I would think in a philosophically pure republic you would have. I do believe in a republic you would have term limits, a well-structured republic, because we've seen empirically that this doesn't work, so we need to codify over time and through referendum, popular support, and the willing legitimacy bestowed from the people. Like, the government should be of the people, by the people, for the people, and that's gotten lost in the latter part of the 20th and now into the 21st century. And Poland is a great example of this. It's kind of at a crossroads. Do you want to endow a party that's had power for a long time, that's coerced the mechanisms of power to exempt itself from law? It's brazenly, the brazen corruption, the looting of the country, the short-sightedness, and things that have happened for Poland have benefited the elites to the detriment, I think, in many cases of the country, and I write about this all the time. Things like the moving closer to Brussels in ceding decision-making capacity about the sovereign state of Poland. What transpired with shale gas drilling, I've written about that in depth. The tax preferential treatment to multinationals. There's all sorts of things that have been legislated in this country in the last 8 years that have benefited us, the plutocracy we talk about, and are certainly not.
Well, you've had the same thing in the United States.
Sure. And I'm fighting against that shit too.
Yeah,
you know?
Because as a good libertarian, as a good Bill Maher libertarian,
Yeah.
I'm not saying you are, because I think Bill Maher calls himself a libertarian.
He's not.
I don't think he is. I think
he's a statist.
He
talks wealth inequality out of both sides of his mouth as he cashes bigger and bigger checks.
I think he talks out of both sides of his mouth.
He is a statist and a leftist.
Yeah.
But, you know, in theory, it's a spectrum that can go full circle. And some leftists can toe a libertarian line. But
well, we know that because we can see that in the Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders phenomenon. And not to forget Ben Carson, who's close to the amount of Trump. These are, one, Bernie Sanders, a longtime professional politician, as an independent.
Who when he was running for office his first time for mayor of Burlington, he was on unemployment. So he was taking taxpayer money to run to work for the people. And it's really, in his mind, the people. An amorphous blob, luja, that loses its character because you're thinking only in what's good for the people. You have this high-minded, academically driven concept that if you put everyone as one, then you can create one set of rules, and the enlightened elite will be those constructors.
Well,
and
on the same time, I'm not in favor of the mob. I'm not in favor.
Conceit.
I'm with Lenin with not John Lennon, who had no idea about politics, but with Vladimir Lenin on one particular subject. I am not for the people in the street to be in charge.
I am. I'm pretty populist in a lot of ways.
I'm not.
I think that a society is derived from. Now, I think that. I see why you wouldn't, because of the mob rule. But if the Republican ideals, the Constitution, for instance, supersedes all, and the mob has to follow that, then that's the ultimate republic, and that's what America had for 100 years, 150 years, between the Industrial Revolution period, post-Civil War, and through sort of the tail end of Reagan and even into Clinton.
Well, you can see that.
And then this century. Really
okay, I'm gonna give you a good example there. That's going to back up your argument. I think if we say you can see that in the way Teddy Roosevelt, who came from the upper class, came in and broke up the trust.
I agree with that.
And created
the trusts were anti-competitive.
Of course, I totally agree with that too.
That's not rule of law. That was a mob. That was
rule of law. He was establishing rule of law.
He was, yes.
Yes.
But the monopolistic systems that grew out, and this is why unions developed, was capital did abuse labor. But the pendulum has since swung too far the other way.
All right, election. We got to come to the election.
Okay.
Because you've got to run. You'll come back. Yeah. So
I'll come back.
We'll do this a bunch of times. Yeah. Okay. But just in a nutshell, and I use that word carefully chosen, because that's the way I see the election. In a nutshell, you've got the right-wing xenophobic let's get rid of those guys.
I don't like the word. It's like taking nationalist and making it.
It's not even right wing, but it's
a bad word. Xenophobic or Islamophobic. What's wrong with having a fear of something that at this point is a risk? It's a risk to the world.
Can destabilize the values you're used to.
Absolutely, that's a risk.
And which have made your country successful.
Fear of it instead of politically correct newspeak that determines those words are hate speech.
Well,
I mean, concepts behind them are hate speech.
And this is what I didn't.
Totally out of bounds.
It's what I didn't like in the reporting I've seen. Like this, it's hagiography. What the reporters are doing. They have these reporters of the Times and the Post. They seem to have and Fox no understanding of what's actually going on. It's like they all go and then they just file the same damn story. They got the same story in every paper with the same beginning. That never used to happen. Yeah. People used to want to have their. I mean, as somebody who started on Fleet Street as a reporter, you had to write something different. Yeah. If you were writing what everybody else wrote,
and it was more competitive.
It was very competitive.
Now, if you subscribe to the same values, you're in. You're in the in club, and it's a free ride.
You said that. Yeah. Okay. We gotta go now. You gotta go pick up your girlfriend, right?
Yep.
That's good. Okay. Come back tomorrow, and we'll finish more. Okay. Excellent. Thanks very much, Matthew Tyrmand.